graffiti. Because you can never repair something where the cost of repair is so much greater than the cost of damage, because it's a losing argument. But in Wikipedia, the undo button was cheaper than the do button. Right? It took you time to write stuff, and then one button, and it all cleaned up. So it meant that people could keep something clean. The commons did not have a tragedy. Where we are heading to in the web is a lot more of the fact that the empowerment of the individuals at the edge will improve the quality, the reliability, and almost the provenance of what we can see. It's going to be easier for us to access it, and therefore some of the things that were technically called crap will stop. So that's one view. But there's a deeper thing happening. When I was at university, there wasn't such a thing as computer science. Okay? You could have electrical or electronic engineering, or you were into informatics theory, etc., but computer science didn't exist. You had a series of disciplines needing to come together before you could have the concept of computer science. Probably Claude Shannon in information theory, or Vannevar Bush, late 30s, early 40s, you could see the beginnings of the discipline, but it took till the late 70s, early 80s before it became a real discipline. The same is true of the web. There's something called the Web Science Trust that you guys can go look at if you want, which is saying that the web is now 20 years old and is evolving to the point where the web needs its own science with the multiple disciplines, the sociologists, the anthropologists, the politicians, and the technologists.
Wikipedia, you mentioned that, didn't you?
Yeah.
You were saying about people putting information in, taking information out. I saw something this morning on the news that Wikipedia lost 4,600 authors last year.
Because of Harvard.
That's right, but this year they've lost 46,000. I just don't understand why that would happen.
Well, about a year ago, they started changing the edit right rules, and that has frustrated some groups of people. Right? The research was published only about a day ago, so yeah. I read the same article you did. I'm not as worried as the people in the article suggested, because whenever we have any of these sort of evolutions, it's like saying that if you listen to the quality of MySpace music 4 years ago and the quality of music on MySpace today, there's been a shakeout, right? You have less of the excrement, right? It's suddenly become a more mature environment, and then you will have part of the tail shaking out, because the way we discover things is you play with it, and when you play with it, quality is variable. So there are lots of people who are like part-time editors. The hardcore of the editors who did like 80% of the work on Wikipedia, right? For them, it's less of an issue because they've already used to certain levels of discipline as they participated. But what I'm sad about, I'm not entirely sure about the law. What I'm sure about is that the 46,000 people leaving is not going to kill it, because there are still enough who are very active and who did the bulk of the work. But any of you are interested in cricket?
Yes.
Okay. When we had the Edgbaston test this year, right? I think the first day there was no play till 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And you had to be very, very patient to just hang around hoping that rain would stop
and drink a lot of Guinness
or whatever. Don't want the Guinness get to my skin. But during that day, for people who weren't at Edgbaston, there was a different game going on, because there was a lady in the commentary box called Caroline Brunswick, who happened to have the same name as a 16th century almost royal. And all day, people who were bored at the test match were rewriting her life history on Wikipedia. The things that she invented, the things that she did, the things that Henry VIII or Charles II got into, that was probably one of the most amazing rolling Wikipedia articles just for a day. Right? And then it all stopped. But those sort of behaviors, where that's how society behaves, if you start putting too many rules, you're going to land up with the wrong consequences. So a part of me says I want it all to get better. But again, to go back to the web, when Tim Berners-Lee was designing the web, the people around the 8th or Charles II got into, that was probably one of the most amazing rolling Wikipedia articles just for a day. Right? And then it all stopped. But those sort of behaviors, where that's how society behaves, If you start putting too many rules, yeah, you're going to land up with the wrong consequences. So a part of me says I want it all to get better. But again, to go back to the web, when Tim Berners-Lee was designing the web, the people around him were such control freaks that they insisted that every time you pressed a button, it should all go perfectly to the outcome. Because they were scientists, the people designed things that way. And he somehow intuitively knew that 404, file not found, was a perfectly reasonable thing to put in. That it was all right to make a mistake, that when you asked for something, if it couldn't find it, it could come back and say, I can't find it, sorry. So pages didn't have to be perfect. And a lot of us believe that the organic nature of the web would have changed completely if the control freaks had won. Instead of which, you can put something up that barely works, and it's still up there. It doesn't have to be perfect before you get there. Does that help?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
That, for me, there's a question there. Who controls the control? And there's a danger. Whilst I understand perfectly what you're saying, there needs to be an element of control. But there's a danger that that kind of control gets manipulated. Because it's not only about technical control, it's about control of information and free flow of information. So whilst in Wikipedia, what you're saying might be very interesting, that there are certain people leaving, but perhaps some people leaving might have been people with cutting edge ideas, with, and it might not be, might, but I think there is a danger of also how the control is being managed, and who manages that control.
I agree. Okay, I agree. The good thing about the web is the people who think they can control it are sadly misguided. It's I was born, brought up in India, as Sue said, and in 1975 the country was put into something called a state of emergency, where the country was ruled by the Prime Minister directly and nobody else. So all the state parliaments were dissolved, all the opposition were put into jail, and newspapers were censored. It was 18 months off, and I was 17 at the time, so I was young enough and yet old enough to really experience it. And lots of people arrested every day. At the end of 18 months, she called an election. And all the opposition was still in jail. So from jail they were screaming, fix, fix. She had a massive majority. That party was the only party ever to have won any election in India ever. Her father was the first Prime Minister, and her surname was that of the father of the nation. Fairly good, strong marketing if you have a surname like Gandhi. No relation. And while the opposition were crying fix, while she was in total control of everything, she not only lost the election, the party lost, and she lost her own seat. Okay? Nobody understood how, but actually that's the way the internet works. We've had the most amazing, crazy things happen on the web because people don't realize you can't control it. Okay? About a year and a half ago, Pakistan was accused of hacking YouTube. What actually happened was somebody in Pakistan said to the ISP there, to the internet service provider, you've got a cartoon that's not good about the Prophet Muhammad. Therefore, we want you to ban anybody going to YouTube. The guy at the ISP worked for the government and said, yeah, all right. If anyone asks for YouTube, I'm going to send them to this page instead saying, banned, verboten, you will not enter, you cannot go. And they did it. And everyone in Pakistan tried to go to YouTube, would go